The TMC First Wave 48 litre nano tank is aimed squarely at people who are new to the saltwater aquarium hobby, and it's been designed to be simple enough and crucially affordable enough to let you dip your toe in the water and work out if keeping a reef tank is for you. So in this video, what I'm going to do is unbox the tank, show you everything you get in there, and talk you through some of the benefits of getting a simple tank like this that's aimed at new hobbyists. Before I get into that though, there is of course the usual disclosure. I saw this in my local fish shop and I thought it looked so good for beginner hobbyists that I emailed TMC and asked if they'd provide me with a free one to make a couple of videos. So this tank was given to me for free and I get to keep it after I made the videos. The usual Reef Talk rules apply though, so I'm always free to say whatever I want, both good and bad. TMC don't get any input into the video and they don't get to see it before you do. Alright, with all that being said, let's take a look at the box. Now there's actually some useful information on the box itself. It tells you what you get in the box of course, and it tells you what kind of fish and corals you can expect to keep, as well as how to set up the tank. But that's all included in the instruction book, and that's where we're going to start. Now the instruction manual it comes with most pieces of equipment, if I'm completely honest, I throw it away when I really should read through it. But there are some really useful things in here that are particularly useful for beginner hobbyists. For example, it starts by kind of telling you giving you a few tips on how to set it up. So it shows you that you need to make sure it's absolutely level, which means that there won't be any stress, unnecessary strain put on the joints. It also tells you how much this is going to weigh, 60 to 65 kilos when you've got it full of water, which means that you'll need to put it on a sturdy cabinet or desk. And it tells you not to put it by a radiator or by a window, because if you do that then it will warm the tank up because it's only a little one. It then gives you the specs of the equipment and tells you the other bits of equipment that you need that aren't included in the box to get things up and running. And it's things like a 50-watt heater, a few measuring jugs, and a few test kits, those sorts of things. It then goes into a step-by-step guide of telling you exactly how to set everything up, where to put all of the filters, how to set up the pump, how to set up all of the filtration media that comes with it, and absolutely everything. How to set up sand, it gives you a recommended substrate depth. This thing tells you everything about how to get this tank set up, which is really useful if you're new to the hobby. And that guide stretches to how to care for the animals. So it tells you the nitrogen cycle, which is basically how you ensure that the tank is ready to accept animals when you want to put your first fish and coral in. And it also gives you general husbandry tips, so maintenance, and it tells you all of the parameters that you should aim for in terms of the level of salt, nitrates and phosphates, which are your nutrients, and various other things. I agree with pretty much everything on this list. The only thing I don't agree with is here where it says what your parameters should be for phosphate. It says 0.03 or less, which is actually really good for some of the trickier corals called aquapora, but you're never going to keep those in this tank. And for the kind of corals that you'll keep in this tank, you don't want your phosphate to be that low. You want it to be more like 0.1, maybe even a little bit more. But apart from that, I agree with absolutely everything in here. So again, it's nice to have a handy ready reckoner on board so you know exactly how to set this up. Now there's loads more stuff in here as well. It gives you a list of suggested fish that you can keep, the type of invertebrates like crabs, shrimp and snails, and then it talks about the kind of corals that you should look for. So really useful, a really thorough guide, and you don't get that with other beginner tanks. Okay, so that's the instructions then. Let's take a look at the tank and the equipment that comes with it. So here is the tank then, and it will be familiar to you if you've ever seen the Fluval Evo tank. It's a very similar design, kind of the peninsular style, and it has a couple of design touches like this little honeycombing across the top and the back that hides your filters and also hides the water level, which sometimes you get little bits of crusty salt appearing on. So very similar in terms of design, and the only real difference is that the Fluval is a kind of cantilever floating design, whereas this sits on the bottom of your desk with no floating. Now for the price, it's perfectly reasonable quality. The plastics are all totally fine, and it has a few little nifty features like a feeding hatch at the top here that's actually a bit stiff that you can pop off to put food in, so it means you don't have to take the whole lid off, and actually even the lid itself will mean that you don't have to worry about evaporation because this will prevent the majority of water from evaporating. Now at the end of the video I'm going to do a leak test, so I'll fill it with water, and at that point I'll show you around the tank a little bit more to show you what it looks like close up. But for now we're going to take a look at the filtration section. Alright, so here we are looking down at the top of the tank then, and these little slats in here are where the water comes in. They come in at the bottom there, the water comes in at the bottom there and at the top there, and then it flows through your filtration system out to a pump that is here and then circulates back round. The first stage it gets into is this section, which is where you will keep your heater. That's all you need in there, just a heater, and TMC recommend a 50-watt heater. The water then passes through the heater chamber into the second chamber, which is where your skimmer will be. Your skimmer is your main filter on this tank. So that's where your skimmer goes, and the water comes into there. Then after it's gone through your filter, it goes into this section, which is where you'll have your filtration media, and I'll show you what that is in a minute. But basically that is home to a lot of your friendly bacteria that you'll need to keep the tank running. Once it's gone through there, the water passes out into here, and the final chamber is just where the return pump goes. So there's a pump that sits in here that circulates water all the way around there, and it will come back in and it will keep the water flowing through your filtration and filtering it constantly throughout the day. Whilst I'm here though at the top of the tank, there are a couple of things that are worth pointing out in terms of build quality. When I say it's totally fine, it really is, but there are just a couple of things that kind of show you that it's a relatively budget tank. For example, here you can see this, the tape, the honeycomb section across the top. On the Fluval Evo, that's kind of painted on, whereas on this, it's just a tape that you can peel off, which actually might be a good thing if you want to peel it off. And the other thing I've just noticed is there's a slight lip, a slight drop down from this panel of glass to this one, and it's the same story over here. That'll be totally fine, you won't see it. It'll be blocked by the lid, so you won't actually ever notice that, but it's just one or two of the little things that show that it's not necessarily the most premium piece of kit, but honestly, for the money, I don't think there's anything here that I'd actually complain about. So that's the tank itself then. Now let's take a look at the equipment that comes with it. Now TMC have actually sent me a whole ton of other equipment, but I'm not going to show you that because I only want to show you the stuff that comes with the tank so you know what you will get. And in the tank is this little box of kit that has the filter, which is the protein skimmer, and also the pump, plus a few other bits. So let's have a look at that. So here are a couple of the filter sponges, and these will go in the second section that I pointed to earlier on, and these will filter out any of the detritus before the water then goes into your filtration media, which is these sorts of things, these little kind of ceramic hula hoop type things, which is what part of what anyway will house your good beneficial bacteria. And then we come on to the return pump. So this is the pump that circulates water around the entire tank. Let me see if I can show you that. It's the tiniest little thing. There's not a massive amount to say about it. It does come with a little inlet guard, which means that it should stop any snails from getting in there and clogging it up, which can happen from time to time. And the other thing to mention is that this is a DC pump. So in theory, a DC pump should be quieter than an AC pump, although I will check that when I get around to setting it up. You also get another filter sponge, and this particular filter sponge you're going to want to dispose of. You can buy massive packs of these really, really cheap, and this will go brown and goopy, so you'll want to chuck it away every week or so and replace it. And then the other bits of equipment you get are, firstly, a little bracket to hold the heater. So this just grips the heater in place, which means it won't sit too low or too high. You also get a little outlet nozzle, that goes on the end of the return pump and sprays water back into the main tank. And then you get the tiniest little skimmer. Let me just pull this out. So here we are, the world's smallest skimmer. If you've ever had a protein skimmer before, you'll find this hilarious because it's absolutely tiny. It's pretty simple, but there are a couple of adjustment knobs. You can remove that, and if I show you here, there is a little valve on top that you can turn to adjust the skimmer, and there is another valve as well. Let me just pop that back on place onto the end there. And there's another little valve that you can adjust, which is here, and you just twist that to let more air in, and all of those adjustments both of those adjustments will let you set the skimmer so it's at the right height. It's really easy to do, and the instruction manual tells you how to do it. The only other two things that are worth mentioning are, in order to clean, so this of course the skimmer will be in your filtration section all the time, and in order to clean it you just need to pop that off, and this is the bit where all the goop, all the fish poo will build up. So you pop that off, and then you just pour it away, give it a spray under the tap, and pop it back on. With a small skimmer like this, you're probably going to be doing that every week. You might be able to get away with doing it a little bit less often, but I would imagine that goop is going to build up in there pretty quickly. And the only other thing that's worth mentioning again, this is a DC protein skimmer, so with a bit of luck it should be nice and quiet. And actually all of the equipment on this tank runs really low wattage. This is an 8.4 watt skimmer. The return pump is 5.4 watts, and the lights I think are something like 13 watts. So the total energy consumption of the tank will be really low, and the heater is probably the only thing that's actually going to use any real juice. Now while that is it for the main equipment, there is one last thing that really caught my eye when I was in my local fish shop and I first saw this, that made me think this is an absolutely brilliant setup, and that is the plug. I know, boring, right? But actually the reason I'm so excited about this is because it comes with all 3 outlets. Are they all the same size? Yeah, 3 outlets that are all the same size. And what that means is that your pump, your skimmer, your main filter, and the lights all run off one plug. Now with any normal reef tank, even the little 100-litre fish tank to my left, I end up with, I think I've got 16 plugs on that tank. It's ridiculous. So you can end up with tons of plugs. And on this one, all of the main equipment goes on one plug. And the only other thing you will absolutely need is a heater. So if you put this tank by a 2-plug socket, that's all you need. You don't need extension cables out there. So although that's a simple thing, I really like that. Now the only other thing I haven't shown you is built into the lid. And here it is the light. This is an LED light, and again, I think it's, if I'm wrong, I'll correct myself on the screen, but it's about 13 watts. This is not the most powerful light in the world, but it will be totally fine for the corals that you're likely to want to keep in here. And I believe it's programmable, but we'll have a look and see just how programmable it is when I actually get it set up. And also I have a testing machine that will test and tell me if that produces the right kind of light, the right spectrum for corals, and the right intensity. So I'll be able to tell you actually if that light is capable of supporting corals. I suspect it will be, but I'll be able to show you what light it creates. All right, that's everything in the box. I'm going to go and get it set up in its final place, and we'll pour some water in to do a leak test. So there we are then. The tank is now full of tap water and it has passed its leak test, as I can tell you because I don't currently have a wet arm. I've got the pump running, it's making a tiny little bit of noise, a little bit buzzy, so I'm hoping that will bed in when I get it set up properly. But what I'm going to do now is completely empty the tank and get it ready to set up fully this time. All of which brings me on to the next video. And in the next video, I'm going to set myself a 24-hour challenge to see if I can set this tank up completely in the space of 24 hours to the point that it is full of fish and corals. Now that is only for demonstration purposes. I'm not saying that you should do that. And the one lesson you will learn if you get into the hobby is that nothing good happens quickly in a saltwater aquarium. Now once I've made that video, I'm going to let the tank run for a week or so, and then I'll come back and make a final video when I give you my proper full thoughts and kind of a full review of this tank to let you know how I've got on with it. So if you want to follow all of that, make sure you like and subscribe. And if you've got any questions, let me know in the comment section below. And until next time, happy reefing.